Thinking negatively about oneself, other people, or the outside environment involves having thought processes marked by negative views, expectancies, and attributions. Anyone can think negatively, especially in difficult situations. Even the most upbeat people occasionally reflect negativity. Regularly pondering negatively can eventually result in negative feelings and physical consequences. It has a virtual link to sadness, anxiety, and numerous other mental health conditions. Thankfully, there are multiple measures one can adopt to reframe prevailing negative beliefs. One can do it all by oneself if the situation permits. Besides, one may consult a mental health expert if one finds oneself thinking negatively all the time. People usually experience destructive thoughts with depression and stress, and these elements may become forceful and unpleasant. Reframing refers to a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, strategy used to recognize instant thought patterns and swap them out with more sensible ones. Beginning to think more positively about a bad or difficult situation is known as positive reframing. How to reframe negative thought patterns and convert them into positive ones. Has anyone ever questioned why it's so simple to notice the bad things in one's life before observing the pleasure? Even a scholar has to discipline himself to avoid picking out the incorrect information on a document before fully getting the gist of it. He needs to put forth some effort into it. It will be challenging for anyone to detect even when it's happening if people don't get accustomed to constantly examining themselves in truthfulness and honesty. Even after that, individuals always undergo the denial stage. People are aware of it as they experience it themselves. The individual realization of how skeptical one has become and how it was so simple to dwell on the negative traits before the positivity arrived is a huge learning curve to admire. If one starts examining one's thoughts and actions carefully, after coming to terms with the reality that such was the case, one eventually begins to notice a pattern. It could take people some time to recognize it, but once they commit, they'll be able to proceed with making suitable changes. Once, someone decided to write on this topic because he witnessed hostility toward a significant project he was working on. The client for whom the assignment was undertaken had never once taken the time to express gratitude or show that he appreciated the amount of labor put in on the project. However, all ingredients of the assignment that are incorrect are painfully apparent at the present moment. The writer has concluded that this way of thinking is simply human nature. Because of how cynical the world and surroundings have compelled living beings, it might be challenging to recognize decency when individual perceptions are clouded by several other unfavorable conditions. The insight finally struck the writer as he was expressing his frustration to one of his colleagues about how awful it was that the said client was blind to the positive developments in the project. The writer suddenly realized that he was doing precisely what he had accused the person of doing at that very moment. Sometimes it might be very difficult to accept the truth. It has also developed into a pattern and way of life. People must be honest with themselves if they want to overcome damaging behavior. Accepting one's excellent, terrible, and unpleasant sides is crucial. Humans remain humble because of their flaws, constantly working to improve their qualities and attain their goals. Dealing with the reality that one frequently observes the negative elements before the positive is enlightening to one's surprise. Does that mean all are pessimists? That is the reality. One has to acknowledge it as the aspect that is unattractive about anybody. However, the best feature about it is that humans make the template, so they can disregard it. Everyone possesses authority. One can reclaim one's power right now. Acknowledging the truth is beneficial. However, for changes to take place, people must dedicate themselves to implementing them. The secret is consistency. To uncover the truth about human actions, they must remain vigilant. At every stage, they must closely review themselves and commit to stopping evil actions. Dedication equals commitments, and they are also equivalent to displays. Finding the triggers that keep individuals in the loop of negativity is the next stage. How does this conduct make one feel? What do people have to say? What is going on all around oneself? What's going on in one's life as a whole? Are people satisfied? They are not at ease very often. Their lives may experience some turmoil. Ironically, despite having little to do with this issue, this incident or circumstance ends up taking the brunt of one's unpleasant emotions. As individuals examine themselves, they will learn to notice when searching for the bad rather than the good. The fact that 80% of the world's populace can read, hear, and see the same thing, but 20% of them get it wrong constantly. It's hard to break that pattern. But recognizing the cues is instructive. Bottom line, when people are in a decent mood, all they can see is the hope of sunshine and positive dimensions. Then one prioritizes the negative above the positive. Although it's essentially the case for everyone, it is eye-opening to realize when all are experiencing decent versus unpleasant. Reframing the problem is the next phase in the procedure. Most individuals adore the word reframe. Why does that matter? If people were discussing images, they would remove the photographs from the worn-out, damaged frame and put it in a lovely brand new frame. Therefore, reframing thoughts from negative attitudes into positive ones is placing that photo in a new frame. The same holds for phrases, words, and contexts. People must adopt a new perspective and approach to better understand the problem. The pathbreaker should consider things from his viewpoint. He is a person with whom all are collaborating on a venture. It's vital to understand that this initiative is not being paid for. It is a choice. People bring up that point because if this were a paid endeavor, the reframing thinking would be that every participant is getting paid to perform an outstanding job. But starting with anybody's point of view is a brilliant way to reframe it. Although what he claims may contain some truth, but can be poorly conveyed, so it becomes unimportant for any reinterpretation. These are some justified stigmas. The words may appear to be spoken in an unhelpful manner. However, the idea conveyed by the words themselves might make the result better. Next, one may have to consider it from the standpoint of developing one's character. One must remain faithful to individuals as indicated. People can't let someone else's poor behavior make others compromise their integrity and stop the sincere labor they have put in. That's what people should cherish. To always do things well should be everyone's guiding principle. So even if the element has the veil of negativity, it needs to be carried forward superbly. If people know they have given it today and in the future, they will be pleased with themselves. They should make every effort possible to ensure the target gets achieved. One should feel proud of one's contribution, irrespective of what is stated or the consequences that have happened. And that's how the problem should get reframed. Turning things around to focus on the positive instead of the negative is the essence. Something positive, such as advice to conduct oneself properly in public, can be viewed negatively. One may feel as though one is not honest with oneself. But in practice, people are still formulating the problem at that juncture. They will not let another group of people control how they behave. They honor their truth and virtues while accepting their emotions. These people are virtually reframing the problem. Get more positivity with NLP reframing. Reframing a thought process or concept enables individuals to see things differently and gain control in circumstances where they might have felt powerless in the past. People frequently conclude that something wasn't as horrible as they initially believed when they now observe the perspectives from a new angle. Human nature dictates that people tend to concentrate on the drawbacks of any particular circumstance. It's possible to train their minds to contemplate pleasant ideas where they can express gratitude for the advantages of the event by simply concentrating on the good. A common negative remark could be viewed differently, like surplus consumption of butter is injurious to health. One may then focus on avoiding the temptation to eat extra fat and calories, which is better than just concentrating on not consuming butter anymore. By doing this, people are guiding their subconscious to concentrate on a different matter. Reframing can be applied to deal with relationship problems, inner fears, and other limits that may be preventing one from attaining his goals. When one reframes a negative experience or circumstance to signify different things, he is giving it an entirely new dimension. Reframing is a technique used to change negative beliefs into positive ones. One entails altering the situation's context, while the other revises the situation's content. People search for the situation's potential value when they examine the context. Using personal bonding as an analogy, individuals may reframe their complaints about their partners spending excess time in the backyard by picturing how lovely it will be once it takes shape. By doing this, people are adding value to behavior that they previously deemed harmful. They are aware that they invest a lot of time in the yard because a lovely landscape is an eventuality. It makes it easier for people to concentrate on the benefits of the conduct. People change the significance of an event when they modify its content. One may rephrase it to indicate that his partner is thorough and organized if one describes them as overly concerned with how things are set up. This change in connotation redefines the action or character attribute as beneficial. It permits individuals to accept the action without its negative overtones because they are viewing it from a different perspective. Conflict and internal strife get eliminated by converting negative events or behaviors into positive ones. Knowing the outcome may be positive makes them less disagreeable and easier to handle. When people view these attributes as positive rather than as a personality defect, it also helps end disputes in interpersonal relationships. Understanding the positive aspects of the behaviors will make it easier for people to promote them, fostering a sense of reciprocity, where others will respond courteously. In this approach, a spirit of harmony generates in what individuals achieve what they desire, and they are more responsive around the community due to the newfound awareness. Build your self-esteem by eliminating negative monologue. Realizing negative self-talk and choosing not to use it can be very effective. It's a typical example of reframing a scenario to highlight the opportunities and emphasize the positives, even when things don't fall in place. The key to all these is to develop the ability to notice negative self-talk and divert attention to more positive thoughts, or at the very least, eliminate them. People should note down whatever they say to themselves, whether it's aloud or in their head. When engaging in negative self-talk, they need to document not only what they are thinking and speaking to themselves, but also the time of the conduct. It accomplishes two things. First, it can serve as a wake-up call for how dismal and unreasonable the self-criticisms are, and perhaps one may begin to soften one's tone as well. Second, one may get the same result by noting it down and returning to read it again later. The hatred one has directed at oneself may appear even more outrageous and serve as the basis for improvement after he is no longer concerned, ashamed, or offended. Once individuals become aware of when they are speaking negatively to themselves, they might want to try to stop midway. People need to simply decide to prevent their thoughts in their tracks by telling themselves no or stop when they catch themselves thinking something unpleasant. Although it could be humiliating, saying this out loud will increase its effectiveness and make one more conscious of how frequently he is suppressing unfavorable ideas. If speaking it out loud is not possible, it may be useful to put it in writing. Another technique is to keep a rubber band on the wrist that one may snap when one hears oneself being self-critical. Although it hurts, it acts as a deterrent, reminding one that negative self-talk is harmful to human well-being and prompting all to stop using it. Besides, people need to reframe the circumstance whenever they catch themselves criticizing or participating in negative self-talk. Negative remarks like, "It's impossible," and "I can't control it," are very harmful tags, since they make people feel more stressed and prevent them from looking for alternatives. Next time people have a negative thought like this, they should reframe it to a query such as, "How can this work?" or "How can I handle it?" They sound better, more upbeat, and present more opportunities to strive for more positive vibes. Last but not least, one should pause for a moment when one is mentally down and make a list of every small thing that makes one comfortable. People need to focus on their accomplishments, both big and small, and on what they do well. One may try performing these activities to help oneself remember his inner talents and potential during moments like this. Generally, people will create a list of their skills, successes, and qualities after giving them some thought and writing them down. Looking over the list may inspire them to turn toward positivity and serve as a reminder that they are still exceptional, even in the face of adversity, though it may not be 100%. It's challenging to relate to people on the other end of the spectrum. Positive people sometimes struggle to comprehend why pessimistic people don't perk up, and skeptical people find optimistic people unrealistic, if not downright irritating. People need to evaluate unpleasant memories and consider how they will help them. Perhaps these events may prevent individuals from continuing down a resilient path. Subsequently, it will teach all valuable lessons or motivate them to make positive changes. It could entail considering an advantage or positive perspective to a terrible spot that individuals had not previously considered. As an afterthought, it might comprise an assessment of what one can learn from a challenging situation. In an adverse circumstance, finding something to be appreciative of can lead to a constructive reappraisal. Sometimes people can get caught in the dreadful web of yielding to negative ideas. The concern is that once people are there, getting out of it may seem incredibly unpleasant. When negativity dominates human thought processes, individuals may lose the ability to think positively. Even worse, over time, one stretches to the point where he stops trying to change the mindset and accepts that it's a routine affair. There are, however, productive strategies to deal with unfavorable impulses. One must first realize that one has the power to stop a negative idea. People don't have to sit idle and concentrate on a negative thought just because it crosses their mind, and they allow it the scope to grow. If one finds oneself thinking something unpleasant, one needs to stop right away. If necessary, people must speak out for themselves loudly to help refocus their thoughts. The next stage is to alter the thought process. Some scholars of repute once claimed that if individuals keep repeating things, they'll keep getting similar outcomes. Humans are the only ones who have the power to alter their deep-rooted negative thinking. Only they have that authority. So after one forces himself to stop thinking negatively, one needs to modify his way of thinking. He needs to reconsider how he may transform it into an uplifting mindset. And if people feel as though they can't, they should still focus their thoughts on something positive to help them feel elated. Every human being has been dealing with issues since his birth. Everyone confronts routine problems in life. How individuals handle such barriers defines who they are as social human beings. They can stay trapped in that cycle of unfavorable thoughts and feelings, or decide that a change is necessary. Focusing on the positive aspects of life is the best method to transform negative ideas into positive ones. So people should find a few honest pleasures in their lives. Whatever one decides to perform, one should try to find the positive aspect of the prevailing situation. In everything, there is an inherent lesson to be learned. If identical negative thoughts keep coming to mind, one might want to take a moment to reflect on why one is having a hard time with that specific incident. One might be concerned about one's finances. Why are people concerned with monetary crises? Why are they apprehensive about having enough money? They may be able to overcome those unfavorable and wavering thoughts and go forward if they discover the logic behind these negative feelings. Stress is believed to be 90% how people handle it, and 10% what happens to them. Therefore, all must focus on managing external stress, both past and present, and let up any self-inflicted inward tension to help them find relief from their sufferings. To fully recover from a negative trance, it is critical to understand and embrace the psychophysiological cause. People should take up practical methods to effectively avoid or treat physical pain or other chronic health disorders and resort to a positive orientation of mind.